Hey guys, so with the Ignite service coming up soon and potentially another Power Pass, I wanted to make another video talking about the classes that I would recommend you to consider for your next character in the current meta. And as per usual, I'm going to break this down into 3 categories: accessibility, utility, and damage. And I'm going to suggest 2 classes for each of these categories. That way I can try to cover as many playstyles and preferences as possible. And like the previous videos, I won't be mentioning any supports in this video as the choice is pretty obvious. If you want to play a support class, just make one. You really can't go wrong with any of them. So I'm going to just be recommending DPS classes in this list. So with that out of the way, let's dive in. When it comes to accessibility, these are classes that I feel would be suitable for anyone in the game to pick up, whether you're a brand new player or a player who has played this game for over 8,000 hours. These classes are simply easy to pick up, fun to play, and as a result will allow you the freedom to think about and hone your basic understanding about how to DPS in Lost Ark. And for the 3rd time, the first class I would recommend in this category is once again the Windfury Aeromancer. This was a class recommended in my previous 2 videos, and it continues to be the most accessible class in the game for all players. On top of being a crit synergy for your party, your identity skill increases the attack speed and movement speed of your allies, acting like a pseudo yearning buff. As a Windfury Aeromancer, you'll definitely be an amazing asset to any raid that you participate in. There are a few reasons why I consider this class a strong candidate for the accessibility category. The first reason being that it is a crit swift class, and as a result, you don't have to worry about having the highest quality accessories, and you're not really tied to any wealth runes whatsoever. Though this will be changing a little bit with tier 4 because stats are going to be coming with your arc passive and not your accessories, but still, any new character will likely be spending a good bit of time in tier 3 before they can make it into tier 4 and get all of its arc passives running and ready. Now, this class is also a Hitmaster class, meaning that there's a ton of flexibility in the way that you approach each and every fight that you choose to participate in. And lastly, the most important reason why I would recommend this class overall is because there's a ton of flexibility to the builds they can use for this class to suit your needs. From the easy to play full hallucination build to the higher ceiling and high APM full swift domination or full crit nightmare build, this class has a wide variety of playstyles to suit your desires. And in tier 4, this class actually got a huge buff in the most recent balance patch, so you can bet that you'll be able to do some pretty good damage even going into the upcoming end game. The next class I would recommend for the accessibility category is the Pistoleer Deadeye. While this class has traditionally been considered a lower damaging class, tier 4 actually brings a ton of changes to the class that makes it one of the most consistent damage dealers in the game. And while this class isn't going to have the highest parse in Trixian, its ability to consistently pump out DPS has made the class a regular on the MVP screen in Korea. On top of its ability to deal decent damage, it is also one of the easiest and most straightforward classes to pilot. Being a Hitmaster class like the Windfury Aeromancer and being a ranged damage dealer on top of that allows the Pistoleer Deadeye to have one of the most flexible playstyles in the game. With flashy skills like Desperado and being able to use its spacebar to dodge twice, this class will make you feel like an absolute badass while you're playing it. And to top it off, much like the Windfury Aeromancer, this class provides a crit synergy, so you're definitely a welcome asset to any party that you join. As for the utility category, these are classes that I believe bring a ton to the party in both the damage department and the support department. These are classes that I would recommend to anyone who is not looking to just be a DPS bot, but also looking to help their teammates perform better as well. And now, the first class that I would recommend in this category is the Wardancer class in general. While I only recommended the Esoteric FI Wardancer in my last video, this time around with the changes to equipment sets in tier 4, both builds of the Wardancer made it to this list. In the past, the first intention Wardancer had a huge issue, which was the fact that it used the Dominion Fang set. But with the changes in tier 4, the class no longer has to deal with the struggle of keeping that buff up, which has made it a lot more friendly and accessible to play. The Wardancer class, in my opinion, is the most versatile class in the game, and it is pretty much able to do everything, from providing a ton of utility to dishing out a ton of damage. Much like the Windfury Aeromancer, the Wardancer has one of the most sought out synergies in the game, the crit synergy. But on top of this crit synergy, this class also provides an attack speed synergy and is able to keep that up much more consistently than that of the Aeromancer, since this synergy skill is on a regular skill as opposed to their identity skill. It also has relatively decent stagger and destruction in addition to having one of the fastest counters in the game. But while both builds do bring a very similar asset to the raid, the playstyles are completely different. The Esoteric Wardancer is much more of a burst playstyle that does have to deal with some significant skill cooldowns, so without the right level of cooldown gems, you'll definitely find yourself walking around and auto-attacking quite often. The First Intention Wardancer, on the other hand, is a consistent damage dealer, and that's all about pressing your buttons fast and furiously. So depending on your preference and playstyle, feel free to pick your poison. Either route you choose will reward you with an extremely solid class. Now, the second class that I'll recommend for this category is the Combat Readiness Gunlancer. While in the last video I recommended the Lone Knight Gunlancer, Tier 4 has actually changed the class up quite a bit and made it a lot more focused on dealing damage over providing utility to the party. Additionally, the Combat Readiness Gunlancer has become the meta pick of all Gunlancer mains because it retains the same level of utility as before, on top of having the higher damage output out of the two builds. And if you thought the Lone Knight Gunlancer was tanky, wait till you see the Combat Readiness one. And while it's not the biggest damage dealer in the game, if played well, it can still out DPS a large majority of the classes in the game. But while damage isn't quite the area this class shines the most, the Gunlancer likely provides the best utility of any class in the game outside of the supports, the Paladin, the Artist, and the Bard. Much like the classes such as Pinnacle Glaver and Asura Breaker, the Gunlancer also has two counters in its kit, but in addition to that, you also bring the ability to provide shields, damage reduction, and cleanse your entire party. The Gunlancer is also equipped with one of the most unique abilities in the game, a taunt. While this taunt is not able to interrupt the attacks of Legion commanders, it will allow you to interrupt most enemies' attacks and stop them from moving for a few seconds, allowing for your other DPS to dish out as much damage as possible during this window of time. Additionally, this taunt will also provide your party with a synergy that will boost the damage of any entropy class in the game, making basically any and all positional classes fall in love with you. And the last category that you've all been waiting for, but also will likely not be surprised by my choices, is the damage category. Simply put, which classes would I recommend you to pick if you're just looking to pump big numbers? Now, the first class I would recommend has to be the Brawl King Breaker. While this class has always been a top tier damage dealer, I never recommended it because it had a fairly clunky playstyle with its slow movement and short melee range. But Tier 4 has taken this class to a whole other level. On top of making the class's playstyle a whole lot smoother, the changes to the class in Tier 4 has brought this class's damage through the roof. The amount of burst that this class can output is insane, and while it has recently been nerfed in Korea, it is still one of the top damage dealers in the game. The downsides of this class though is that it is a specialization class that does need all of the purple wealth runes to play smoothly. So it might not be the best class to play on the Ignite servers due to the limited resource you begin with. But if you're willing to put in the work to do some horizontal content and get it the runes and the stats that it requires, you'll definitely be rewarded with what is without a doubt one of the strongest classes in the game. And the last class I would recommend today, and the last class in the damage category, is definitely the Full Moon Harvester Soul Eater. This class has always been a top tier damage dealer, and Tier 4 has brought it to new heights it has never seen before. Much like the Brawl King Breaker, the Full Moon Soul Eater is another burst class that will allow you to see some huge numbers whenever you burst the boss. But while the Brawl King Breaker can still be seen as somewhat of a clunky class, the Full Moon Soul Eater is definitely the opposite of that. It is one of the few classes in the game that I would consider to not have any form of real skill rotation, allowing you to throw skills out as you please, and on top of that, it is a class with a huge number of super armors, which will allow you to play greedy and eke out every point of damage as possible. The downside though again is the fact that it is a specialization class with some strict stat requirements, but much like the Brawl King Breaker, If you're willing to put in the work to get the stats that this class requires, you will be rewarded with another class that is considered one of the strongest classes in the game. So that about wraps it up, right? Well, actually, I have one more class that I wanted to recommend to you guys. While this class doesn't really fit in any of the previous categories, I thought that I would throw in an honorable mention, specifically because of the situation we're in right now with a new tier of content. Now, this class that I'm going to mention is not the best in damage, it's not the best in utility, it's not really the best at anything, but I think that this class is an extremely good class whenever there's a new tier of content, and in my opinion, this class has actually gotten a lot better with tier 4. And this class has to be the Demonic Shadowhunter. The reason why I have this class as an honorable mention is because I think that in tier 4, when everybody is starting off, the Demonic Shadowhunter shines. Because it is a 2-gem class, it is going to be a lot easier for you to get to your peak power levels compared to the other classes. So for the longest time, this class is probably going to be one of the stronger classes in the game. And with the changes in tier 4, it definitely won't be a terrible class later on either. With its new Hyper Awakening skill, and with all the changes to the class with the Arc passive, this class has become quite a powerhouse in the meta of Lost Ark. While you won't be getting that power in tier 3, in tier 4 it'll become quite a powerhouse with the new X skill and the new T skill. Now, the Shadowhunter has always been a pretty solid class in Lost Ark. It's never been the strongest, but it's always had fairly good damage, fairly good survivability, and also, again, it is always one of the cheapest classes to make because it only requires 2 gems. Now, there is a little bit of a change though in tier 4. Shadowhunter does require a full set of gems, but the one caveat is that it only requires 2 gems from its class, but the rest of the gems can be filled with any gems from any class. All you're using those gems for are for the percent attack bonus that you get from the tier 4 gems. So what you can do is have your Shadowhunter have 2 level 10 gems for its demonic skill, and then have the rest of the gems just be filled with gems from your other tier 4 characters. And boom, you have an extremely strong, extremely cheap, extremely versatile class. This class has always been one of my favorites in the game, and I really think that you should consider playing this class in tier 4. Now, in the Ignite service, it's probably not going to be that strong because the free gems that you get aren't going to be level 10, but over time, or if you're not a new player, you can always give that class higher level gems later on to make it much stronger. And that about wraps up this video. Hopefully you guys thought this was both informative and entertaining at the same time. Additionally, if this helped you figure out what class to make in the next Power Pass, please let me know down in the comment section below. I'd love to see it. I read every single comment that you guys put onto my videos. So thank you guys for continuing to watch these videos every time I put them out. And if you'd like to see more of this content, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It really helps the channel out a ton and I really appreciate it. And also, if you want to see me live, I stream every single day on twitch.tv/MisoXshiro, and I would really appreciate seeing you guys there. But until next time, I hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see y'all on the next video. Alright guys, peace.